It would probably the most logical way to start with a presentation, with introducing our panelists. It will be a discussion rather than panel. Now each panelist will introduce him or herself, each expert will introduce him or herself, then everybody will have 10 minutes for a brief presentation and then 5 minutes for Q&A or discussion. So we are to start. Добрый день. Меня зовут Ким Ороси. Я работаю в Еврокомиссии. Изначально я из Финляндии, но последние 20 лет я работаю в Люксембурге. Меня зовут Анна.
So I represent translation companies here and also the ERIA exchange program, which is a program for universities, translation companies and students to work together to improve translator training in Europe.
I'm Irina Alexeyeva. I'm from St. Petersburg, Russia. I have been dealing with translation since 1975. Translation from 1975 and interpreting from 1990. This is my practical experience in T&I. I handled patent law, medicine, law, economics, members in translation, and also bell letter. I have been translating about 2,000 pages a year, and that includes at least 2 to 5 books, some bell letter every year. This is about my volumes nowadays, and I have been teaching translation and interpreting since 1980. I have worked for 30 years in St. Petersburg State University, teaching translation and interpreting there, and 6 years ago I organized my own school. This university trains translators and interpreters for UN, mostly international global interpreters, and now I'm the director of that school. Good afternoon again. I'm Tatiana Struk. I have been managing a translation company for 16 years. We mostly deal with translations and localization. And it has been about 9 years that I have been teaching in universities. I have developed my own training courses on CAD tools, editing and translation of official documents. Now we have consolidated our efforts in order to change the translation and interpreting training in the country. Good afternoon again, I am Aleksandr-Bondarenko. I have been managing a translation company called Translatel for a bit more than 10 years, and I have been teaching in the university for 15 years. Why do we have this title for our panel discussion, Swim or Sink? The matter is, if we don't help ourselves, nobody will help us. So we only have to count on our own efforts. To start our discussion, I'll provide some statistical data, small research we carried out just before this conference. It may help somebody and be of interest to some people. We have interviewed translation companies, those participating in our Facebook group. Those companies are really interested in implementing some changes, and we ask them how do they see cooperation between their company and the university, and if they want to change something, what are they doing to that end. And based on our statistics, we see that 67% of respondents do have some internships. This is the most widespread type of cooperation between translation companies and universities. 33% of those somehow engage students as employees in their companies, and 33% of companies do not have any plans for such cooperation. A pity to see this, and we hope that sooner or later all people will understand that we all have to do something to change this situation. And there have been some gradual changes, some experience of speaking at universities, introducing respective companies. 25% of those people believe that they would cooperate with universities in some way or another, and unfortunately there is a very rare technique which we could borrow from our IT people, is about having a system whereby people will be recruited, trained and recruited when they are trained in a tailored way, because some big translation company has this demand. Another question that we asked is about the problems that they have been faced with in their cooperation with universities. And you are welcome to see the data on the screen. One of the key things here is lack of understanding on the university side, lack of understanding of the business realities. 43%. There have been even more people who say that there are bureaucratic obstacles for such cooperation, and even more people, 62%, have complained that they are lacking their internal resources in their respective companies to maintain effective and efficient cooperation with educational institutions. There has been a small percentage of people, 12% of companies, saying that their core problem is about recognition of intellectual property rights. We didn't expect it, to be honest, but still we see these examples, and quite a lot of companies have said something which is related somehow to the first option, which is about differences in organizational cultures. Clearly, universities are of some post-Soviet style, and businesses have to work to make money. So they are more efficient, and the universities are not as efficient as businesses are. And the last option, not a lot of people, 16% of them, have said that they have funding difficulties, funding problems, budget problems, how it's difficult for them to keep within their allocated budgets. Yeah. So I believe that now we have to start our discussion and short presentations by our participants, and we'll start with Kim Rossi. Kim.
Thank you. First, I think I have to say a few more words about myself, because I consider myself an untypical case. Yesterday I had a presentation where I more or less presented what I do today and what I've been doing the past 14 years, so managing scientific and innovation projects on language technology and translation technology. So I will not go into detail on that, but if I go back in time a little bit, 20 years ago when I joined the European Commission, I joined the European Commission as a translator. So I went through the translator competition, and it was fortunate for me that the European Commission has a policy that they hire translators that do not have a diploma in translation, because I'm an engineer, so I have not studied translation. But I just had to take a translation test in a couple of languages, and then if you pass that, you can be hired as a translator. Now, if I go back in time, I like the reverse order, because my view is the reverse angle to translator training. What did I do before joining the European Commission? I worked in a localization company, translation company. Back then, in the 80s, we didn't talk about localization. We called ourselves an IT translation company, because that sounded fancy. and that's what we did. We translated software products, not yet websites, because there was no internet back then. So we started with 5 people. None of them had a diploma in translation. Actually, none of them had any diploma at all. We were all students. And we were all students in the same university, the Helsinki Polytechnic University. And our CEO, who started the company, had this brilliant idea that why don't we engineering students start to translate software products? So that was. We worked quite a long time, a few years before we hired our first linguist, our translator, and it was a funny situation that we had one strange person in the team that, hey, let's go to lunch together and let's take the translator with us, and we were a translation company. So I had sort of, at the same time as I was studying, I was working as a translator. So I had this internship that we have heard about in this session earlier, but my internship lasted for almost 5 years. And I managed then to graduate after that, but many of my colleagues never graduated because, well, their internship went on forever. And some of them are still working there. So now so my point is this. There are lots of translators that are actually not translators, in the sense that they don't have a training for translator. The European Commission employs maybe 1/3 of the translators are lawyers or engineers or medical doctors or agronomes or practically anything. And that's also an angle that I think we should take into account when we think about the challenges of education. So it's not only the translator's education, but how to educate others in translation as well, those who are not originally translators. How to teach them language skills or writing skills, because what really matters, in my opinion, is writing skills. You cannot really be a translator if you don't have writing skills. And another thing that is required, that you understand the text that you are translating. And that's about all. That's my thesis, that this is what is important, what is helpful. I couldn't agree more that in the earlier presentations today we heard that there were some bad experiences about compulsory elements in translation training, of how to improve some skills. So imposing some standards doesn't usually work. So that's why standard is a kind of dirty word. I remember we had one standard in the Polytechnic. Somebody had decided that all the future engineers, they must learn something that was called technical drawing. So drawing pictures. And the same way as art students, they may be sitting in a room together where there is a nude model somewhere and everybody is drawing their own version of the model. We had the same situation, but instead of the nude model, we have a piece of a machinery that we had to draw. Everybody hated that course, but it was a compulsory element of the training. It was a standard that was imposed. And many hated it so much that they didn't want to draw anything after that course. So that's in my opinion, that illustrates that you have to let people do what they want to do, so what they have passion for. And the thing is, the open question in my mind is how how to teach technology or train technology or get people enthusiastic about technology if they are not originally enthusiastic about that. And then conversely to the technical people, how to make them enthusiastic about language or how to teach them writing skills. So that is my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Kemal.
And now we will listen to the presentation from T-Service. We have somehow missed one logical item in our discussion. We wanted to tell that there are companies who don't see any obstacles in resolving these issues, and when we list all those categories, nothing prevents them from doing things. And we will start with looking at companies who have been successfully implementing technologies. Then we will discuss how the industry approaches the universities, and then we'll discuss how universities approach the industry and how they cooperate successfully, because this is now one of the key methods to steer up the developments in the situation. And now we've got somebody from T-Service, Svetlana Svetova and Tatiana Vinogradova. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah, we're listening to you. Good afternoon. It's a great pity that we are not there with you, but we are listening to you, and we watch, and we are much interested in whatever is going on. And now Tatiana will tell you more about our programs, but I'll just briefly tell you that we are very glad to see that positive experience we have already got it here in Russia with regard to things you have been discussing, and we'll gladly share our experience with Ukrainian colleagues and listen to their wishes and tell you about what we have to offer if there's any particular demand. So we are open for dialogue, we are open for cooperation, and we would like to try and find some ways to cooperate and interact. And Tatiana will tell you in more detail about how it can be done, what's going on. So, may I start then? Yeah. I don't see whether you have my slides on the screen. Now we see you on the screen. Okay, is it then possible to switch to my slides and I'll comment on those? I have a brief presentation, not a lot of slides. Maybe we will show your slides now. In the meantime, you're welcome to start. I will tell you about how the basics of CAD tools are taught in universities, and I will use the example of SDL's academic program with St. Petersburg Polytechnical University. This is a leading technical university in Russia, and we have got very interesting experience of cooperation with that university. We have our slides now. Let's switch to the second slide, which is about the relevance of CAD tools training. It's not a top secret that nowadays, if you have to arrange an efficient and effective translation process, it would be impossible without such tool. All translations, or most translations, are done using some CAD tool. So it's very relevant to learn such tools in universities. And when graduates enter the market after they graduate, they are faced with a situation where translation companies always raise some requirements regarding that type of knowledge, in addition to some basic requirements, they also want people to be able to use some CAD tool, and quite often it's TRADOS. Let us switch to the next slide, and will briefly tell you about SDL's academic program. This is, in my view, a very strong program because it is of comprehensive nature. It's not just about some academic licensing for SDL TRADOS. Instead, we are talking about a whole range of training materials, events, certification for students and professors alike. And the purpose of this program, SDL's academic program, is to provide comprehensive assistance to universities for their students to acquire relevant knowledge, and for those universities to be able to train skilled professionals able to master CAD tools. Within SDL's academic program, our company offers various training materials. Those include various manuals, course books with examples on how to use various features of software, and detailed presentations which tutors, professors can then use in the theoretical part of their training courses. So we provide material for both introductory lectures and practical sessions. We also run special training sessions, training courses for tutors. We run on a permanent basis various webinars. We regularly organize events for tutors and professors from various countries where those can share their experience of teaching such systems in various universities. That is to say, we maintain constant knowledge exchange between colleagues worldwide. Also, we have developed a certification program. This program is about a set of training materials and tests of various levels and in various areas. There are some tests or exams for translators, the difficult type for managers, yet another type of exams or tests for lexicography managers. And this certification, these tests take place in an online mode, and based on the results of those tests, we issue a personal electronic certificate which confirms that the user possesses the knowledge of a system. So now let's switch directly to the experience of St. Petersburg Polytechnical University. We started our direct cooperation in January 2011 when the university bought 13 licenses for SDL TRADOS Studio 2009 Professional. Of course, those were with an academic discount, which is 90%. After that, we installed the system in their room. There are 12 PCs for students and 1 computer for a tutor, for a trainer, and then we trained the trainers 12 academic hours. It was about an advanced course on SDL TRADOS operation. And then during 1 year we had been providing technical support for the university, for their Department of Linguistics and Intercultural Communications. We provided technical support, we shared various materials and so on. But we met that university even earlier. Marina Kagan, who is in charge of the SDL TRADOS program of training on CAD tools, we first met Marina at a translator advanced training sessions run by Proverbum company, and there was a practical training session on SDL TRADOS where we met Marina. Since then, we started working on implementing that system and training on that system at St. Petersburg Polytechnical University. As a result, we developed a training course called CAD Tools, and within that course there's one introductory lecture on the basics of this CAD tools, some basic information about technologies, and then there are 8 training sessions, practical sessions, in that computerized room where various features of the system are taught. The tutor uses his or her PC and provides instructions to students, and tutor's actions are shown on the screen and students reproduce them on their PCs. The whole course takes 24 academic hours, and based on the results of those sessions there is a certification exam. So each and every student personally gets tests as they'll through the studio for translators. We upload them personally for the student. Usually this is a basic level or intermediate level, and at the last training session there is this test. There are 40 questions with various options for answers, and the students have 40 minutes to answer those questions. Based on the score that the student receives, he or she either passes or fails, and then there is a personal page of certified as the TRADAS user. This page is some sort of an electronic certificate that which is the evidence of the system knowledge. And after that, students fill in questionnaires, and if you move to the next slide, here you see some extracts from some questionnaires filled by students, their feedback on this training course, and we can say that students highly appreciate this course. They recommend it within other programs. They are ready and willing to use the acquired skills in their practical activities and to improve those. Marina Kagan, who is in charge of that academic program, she is a program manager, says that this academic program provides opportunities to improve their professionalism through talking with colleagues worldwide, participating in various webinars and so on. I understand that I have been running out of time, so yeah, thank you very much, but if you're interested in details, you're welcome, and we'll get those, and we're always ready and willing to cooperate with universities and to help them in implementing those training courses. Yeah, we're very flexible. We'll ask our audience. Maybe somebody has questions for Tatiana. No? No question? Maybe you may have questions regarding the first part of our discussion about technologies, because after that we will switch to slightly different aspects. If there's no question, there is a question. There is one. You're welcome. Good afternoon. My question is probably not so much about technologies, but still, as far as I understand, you're telling us about the experience of cooperation with universities in Russia. I'm interested in a very specific question: how to cooperate with you here in Ukraine, in particular in Lviv. Well, we will visit you soon. We'll come to Lviv. You mean cooperation with TRADAS, yeah. Tatiana? Svetlana? Well, I'll tell something and then we'll coordinate. We have already got some experience of cooperation with university in Ukraine, but unfortunately that university has not yet provided me with their consent, has not given their consent yet for sharing this experience. But we do work with them, we get requests, we share this, we provide information, but you're welcome to write to me directly and we'll coordinate those activities. We also have a partner in Kyiv able to demonstrate something, and that partner also runs training, so we are present in Ukraine too. Thank you very much. Any more questions? Thank you, and we will continue our discussion. And the next part of it, Carnegie-Brown, how does the translation industry approach universities? Anu, you're welcome.
So I'm also a translator by training. I graduated from Helsinki University in 1993, so I've been working in this industry for 20 years. Out of those years, I have worked as a translator maybe 3, and all the rest has been different translation company management tasks, really. The company that I work for now has got the EN 15038 standard, which is a translation industry standard, and it gives you recommendations of the qualifications for the translators that you employ. They say that you can either take translators who've got translator training from university, or if you don't employ somebody who's got translator training, then you have to have some kind of other degree plus certain number of years of experience. Now, I'm the person at our company who's in charge of human resources, so both for employing in-house staff and also freelancers. And we tend to apply the first recommendation of that standard. So we only employ people who have got a degree in translation studies. And that applies both to our in-house translators. We have got more than 45 in-house translators, and also to our project managers. We've got more than 20 project managers, and they are also all translators by training, which I think is very important and useful. And from my own experience, and also from my experience from ILIA, I firmly believe that there is a gap between what the industry wants and what the European translator training is currently producing. And the question is, how do we bridge that gap? At the moment, I think many translation companies feel that it's them who have to bridge the gap. So when we employ people who come straight from university, we have to spend a lot of time teaching them the skills that they didn't learn at university. So it's us who kind of bear the cost of bridging that gap. And that's why I'm advocating this cooperation with universities. I know that you can get training elsewhere as well. You can pay for private courses. You can go on an SDL Trados course, or there are organizations that provide you extra training. But my point is that it's kind of not fair that young people go to university to study translation. They put a lot of years into it. In England, for example, they put a lot of money into it as well. And then they come out and the industry says, oh, but you're not ready. You don't know what we need you to know. You have to go and pay more money and go on these extra courses before we can use you. So I would rather improve the training that they do get at the university. I think it would be the most efficient way of improving the situation, rather than them coming to different translation companies and all of those companies doing their trainings separately. So that's my view, and I present it as the industry view.
Ну, взгляд индустрии на эти вещи, он и должен быть специфичным. Если есть какие-то вопросы в аудитории, мы просим. Есть вопрос? Да? Все согласны. А у меня есть вопрос, можно? Я хотел задать еще на выступление. Собственно, вопрос следующего характера. Вот мы во время своего выступления говорили, как мы видим, что бы являлось мотивирующими факторами как для вузов с одной стороны, так и для индустрии с другой стороны. То есть там для вузов это действительно готовых выпускать переводчиков, для индустрии иметь доступ к свежим ресурсам, свежей крови. Но это такой, мы так думаем, локализированный вариант. Ясно, что какие-то базовые вещи, они есть вечные ценности. И, тем не менее, есть какие-то специфичные, наверное, кросс-культурные аспекты. Вот интересно, работает ли все это у вас, и что бы вы могли добавить к тем мотивирующим вещам, которые мы назвали? Вот, собственно, мы находимся в Украине сейчас на фазе нахождения вот этих мотивов, донесения их до всех ключевых игроков. С одной стороны представители индустрии, с другой представители вузов. И вот, собственно, если мы это сделаем, то мы решим проблему. Okay, I can repeat. So in our speech, we actually gave some feedback about the motivation of both industry and the representatives of the universities. You probably heard. Are they working the same in your countries, in your country? If so, maybe you could add something to what was expressed by us, since actually we presented a localized Ukrainian variant. Yes, what is working with you?
So I have to do the rest of the world, yeah? I think there's great variety. There are universities who recognize the problem. There are individual teachers who recognize the problem. And they are very willing to look into solutions. But it's often not the teachers who are in a position to make the change. The teachers will have to go to their decision makers within the university to get any changes made to the content of the courses, for example. So winning the teachers onto our side is often not enough. And that's why I think it's actually important that we also get the students on our side. I think it's important that we approach student associations, if there are such things at your universities, because the students, I think, they understand the need. They are very motivated to change because it's their future we're talking about. It's their employability that we're talking about here. And the students, at least in England and other countries where they pay very high fees for their courses, they are kind of the paying clients for the universities. So if they are not happy with what they get for their money, hopefully the decision makers will listen to them. So yeah, my approach would be to find the teachers who are willing to work with you, but don't ignore the students either. I think they have a powerful voice in this.
Thank you. Спасибо большое.
This component of cooperation between industry and the universities should also be covered by Vitaly Vorobyov, who is to join us later, and he'll tell us about his company's experience within our project for cooperation with universities. And in the meantime, we are to switch to the third part, which is how universities cooperate with the industry and how this translation training process could be tailored as much as possible to fit modern demand. Yeah, that is some sort of hint that I'll tell you something now. Yeah, you can hear, yeah? I thought you can hear me, yeah. Well, I'll have a presentation which is not exactly adapted for this perspective which I'd like to take now, but the matter is, you have mentioned a very important aspect, which is students themselves. Recently, this morning, we were talking about translation trainers, but students are a very important factor, and therefore presentation was about some sort of transparent wall, unbreakable glass wall, because our students do not create their associations. I don't know about Ukraine, but our students are rarely active participants in the process, and this is a very important component, because in our higher school of translation looks a bit differently, and I'll tell you why. The matter is, this school, which was created 6 years ago, was created because of the pressing demand to have translators trained completely as translators, not just getting some knowledge about some aspects of translation. And we have gradually developed a model of how it can be done, how to start and how to complete this education to get a translator ready for use. So under St. Petersburg Herson University, we created this entity. This is not a master's program. This was a matter of principle for me. I created it as part of joint master's program with Geneva University for very ambitious people only, those who don't fully understand as yet whether they want to be translators or researchers. There is this option, but that's for some people only. But by and large, this is a training course of additional education as a translator, and it exists as a small school. We have not more than 25 graduates every year for key UN languages other than Arabic. If you don't remember those, I will remind you they are English, French, Spanish, Russian and Chinese. We haven't launched an Arabic program as yet. So this is a narrow specialization on international issues, and we mostly train people for international organizations, international institutions. But of course, we also had some sort of hidden idea that all translators and interpreters, including freelancers in Russian and foreign markets, to improve their skills, and we do have such students, so that such people would get better jobs and would work as decent translators and interpreters in our Russian market and in international markets. There was yet another important objective, which is not the core objective, but still I don't understand why we haven't mentioned it here, which is this. To have strong professional education, you should not have everything centered and focused in one city. Kiev is somehow, for some reason, was a city where UTIC conference has to take place, and when we are talking about universities, we are talking about Kiev, but that's the wrong approach. The whole country should be covered by this network of education centers, and our objective was to have it, at least not in Moscow, but at least in St. Petersburg, and we have created it in St. Petersburg. That said, there is another aspect which is somehow related to my first thought. There is another area and another prerequisite for this education, for this training to be efficient and effective. Nowadays, it cannot be structured along one mainstream direction. People cannot be all walking the same street and you're killed if you leave it. No. Like one street centered around standards. No, a modern person is very much individual, and to be successful in their profession, they have some individual method of mastering it, and there should be opportunities for that, not only in universities, but it can also be about some centers, about some training courses in translation companies, about various additional programs, seminars, workshops, short-term work, long-term, short-term, summer schools run by some non-governmental organizations, forums like this one, and so on. All these components should make up a path way, and any young person who wants to become a translator or interpreter would go along that path, but create certain steps and stops based on his or her own interests, including, for example, including some legal education, including some internet education in his or her training, and he or she should be able to have all these things documented and have their education in a tailored way based on their personal specifics and passions. So this school is one of the extra opportunities. It will never a core component. It's not part of Bologna process, and it's not part of a university. It's like under the university, attached to the university. Another specific feature which nobody mentions again is this: we might keep talking about how to engage translation companies and that education and training and improving it and so on. What about employers and so on? That's very important. But you know what? You cannot train a translator or interpreter with 2 hours a week only. You cannot do it that way. And if the university has a great plan for various meetings and events and whatever, but students only have 1 or 2 or 3 sessions a week, that's a very small number. So another important component is translation training intensity, which should be maintained. How do you maintain it in your university programs? Please share your views. I never hear anything about these things, and I suspect that the situation is good here, like you have 10 sessions a week, 2 hours each. But the matter is, in our school, our training program depends, our curriculum depends on our tutors team only, and in June we will have only, for interpreting alone, we have 18 sessions of 2 hours each a week, but we also have translation, and interpreting is about simultaneous and consecutive and about 2 languages, but this is not the whole curriculum. Now look at the next slide. We don't have a lot of time, so it may be redundant, but let's move to the third slide immediately. Yeah, third slide. Yeah, let's move to this one. Some background about our school, but in the meantime you're welcome to read that small print on the slide, if you can see it. Well, I didn't purposely make it invisible for you. Yeah, I had something like that in my first presentation, but not here. So, we've got a system which is based on cluster principle, broad cluster principle. What does it mean? It means that when translators and interpreters are trained in my school, all employers participate in that process, and their participation is not just about knowing those people or making friends with them, or 33% of them wanting to do that. No, they all participate in acceptance exams, acceptance tests. People from UN, from Russian Foreign Ministry, from Kazakhstan Foreign Ministry, because I have a separate program for Kazakhstan Foreign Ministry now. And there we have people from the World Health Organization, people from the IMF, all those for whom we train our translators and interpreters. They are part of our testing board. They can vote there, and they are like observers. They come whenever they want, and they have agreements and memoranda with us, whereby they are entitled to teach to some extent in our school, to run some guest training courses. And if you have a memorandum, we have a lot of those. For example, with European Parliament, we have that sort of a memorandum, and they participate in training. Once a week or twice a week, they run video conferences, training video conferences, which I described earlier this morning. They always participate in our graduation tests, and they are entitled to say that this graduate should not receive his or her diploma. Then they provide internships when the graduate already has a diploma, and there are long internships. For example, the International Civil Aviation Organization provided 4 internships, 3 months each last year. And of course, they are interested in taking our graduates to work for them after that sort of internship. So these are employers. a broader circle and smaller circle of employers. And of course, you see translation and interpreting companies as part of those circles are local ones, and this bright orange circle, regional companies, Western companies, they're all involved in training, and we benefit from them somehow. For example, they provide allowances for students, and we promise that we'll provide them with our graduates and so on. They're also mass media. We got them on board, and they participate on a permanent basis in covering all our events and meetings. There's also City Hall and federal authorities, and we keep informing them and engaging them in those activities. True, there are problems with funding now, but we get some funding from local authorities, not from federal authorities as yet. So this principle is a very important one. The degree of intensity and this cluster principle enable us to constantly improve our training. It's not just intensity, of course, it's not intensity, but this principle enables us to constantly improve training, and most importantly to control and monitor it at each and every stage, because there's many people, and the translator or interpreter who comes here, for example, there is Maxim, who is now in the booth doing interpreting there. We have caught him and he spoke there. Any and every interpreter and translator can speak there, and somehow helps in creating the system of constant dynamic quality monitoring. We are like behind a glass wall. It's education or training in a glass wall, and everybody sees it and can say, here, wrong here, we need this, this looks strange, that looks different. Everybody can add something, suggest something, criticize something, and we tend to take all these things into account. And as a result, we got some results. Of course, one may say, poor guys, our students, they work 24 hours a day, but also our tutors, our professors work 24 hours a day, and everybody is happy as a result. I missed one thing which I have to mention now. We also have very special entrance barrier. We have very strict requirements, and this is another important aspect. For successful translation and interpreting training, we should have, and I really believe in it, we should have not only strict entry requirements, but also in the course of constant monitoring and control and oversight, it should always be possible to remove a person from this course. Because, you know, our education system is very humane, and now it turns into some sort of lack of principles. And in higher education and university education, this humane approach resulted in a situation where there are people who are not talented and even lazy people, and we still say poor guys. Because I believe that actually everybody has some talent, some gift. It just looks like a person does not have any gift, but that means that the person does not want to reveal it somehow, or they are pressurized by something. But universities should not become social support centers. They should be education and training centers. And if they can create a center like our school, and it develops also as a research center, because ultimately, even translators and interpreters who never did any research start publishing articles and participating in conferences, and this becomes a constant process. They create textbooks and so on. But on the other hand, all this should produce some targeted result. We mentioned perfectionism today, but true, perfectionism has some mentally wrong aspect. We will never see the result. You have to know that, we should put the full stop somewhere wherever possible, and then we'll get the result we need. Thank you. Thank you, Rina. And now we'll give the floor to Vitaly Vorobyov, and then you will have an opportunity to ask your questions. Thank you. Now, Alexander will launch my several slides. I'm Vitaly Vorobyov, director of Promova, a Kharkiv-based translation company. And now I would like to share with you some experience of translation internships for students. This initiative was launched last year, thanks to Alexander and Tatiana. Yeah. These are tables where our interns are sitting in our office. Just joking. Yeah. Maybe I'll comment on this one. Well, that's it. Translation and interpreting internships experience of Promova. It all started last year in May when Tatiana and Alexander presented Vox Translatorum initiative and called for and urged companies and universities to cooperate. I missed their presentation back then, and I only learned about it by chance later in September. But then we established the first contact, and we said we would like to participate in the roundtable discussion, and we would help a bit with preparations. And in November, that roundtable discussion took place. You'll see this sort of, you'll better understand how much time it takes from a situation where there's no internship and you don't even think about it to some real results. So in November we already had a roundtable discussion with about 5 universities, some business people, unfortunately fewer people from the business side than we invited, but maybe business people are always busy and some of them have been unable to attend, but still we had more than 20 participants, and there was a lively interest from the tutors side in this initiative. And due to Tatiana and Alexander's efforts, in February we already had a one-day workshop, training workshop. Teachers, tutors call it a seminar or workshop. We call it a training session on CAT tools. We developed something for translators, but for trainers it also turned out to be useful. We had 10 participants, so there was some serious interest in it. We had been supported by All Ukraine Union of Translation Teachers, Translation Professors. There is this NGO, and this is an example of feedback. I'll read it aloud. We like this workshop because of its practical orientation and ability to critically assess our skills, the contents of the training process, real working environment, and requirements for a modern translator. For me personally, the most useful training sessions were those about SDL Trados, as well as suggestions on possible use of other software in different software in the training process. By the way, this comment also applies to things mentioned by many people, like trainers, tutors don't know that there are free licenses for CAT tools, that there are free CAT tools which you can use in the training process. Many thanks to the company management, to Tatiana who ran this workshop, and I hope that cooperation between company management and universities will continue. This is just one of messages that we received, and all tutors, teachers say that cooperation is important for them, which makes us optimistic. And in March we already got first students as interns. We have Ukraine's People Academy in Kharkiv, and 2 female students, 50-year students, had their internship for 2 weeks. It was a bit chaotic because this was the first experience, but by the end of their internship it was better, and it was finally not that bad. In April we already had an internship with another university, Kharkiv National University, their Department of Foreign Languages, which is one of the most prestigious universities in our city, and we had 4 students for 4 weeks. This is their feedback. I will not read them aloud. Well, I arranged it in such a way that all students would first submit their CV and do some test translation, and then at the end they would provide feedback. Because we have a systematic approach. We will collect all the data, and in a year or 2 or 3 we will see whether anything has changed. I took some neutral pieces from feedback, saying like cool and so on, but students basically say we knew nothing and now we realize that we know nothing, but I have to wait until they graduate, because if they say all that they will have problems with their professors. And now in May we continued our program. Something about the organizational side. We set a task for ourselves to first of all train students on CAD tools, because students would know nothing about those, would not even know about the existence of CAD tools, and also to tell students about the full cycle, production business cycle in the translation company, for them to know how it goes, and also to create some vision of the future, where they should move and how things will be developing. Second, for us internally, we wanted to arrange internships for minimum burden, with minimum extra burden for the company, because you know, when you have to deal with students, we need extra resources and time, and we don't get anything in return, so we have to minimize those costs. And in the long-term prospect, of course, we want to have well-trained employees. And steps for this internship are as follows: introductory lecture, types of documentation, style guides, quality systems, tools, CAD tools. This part takes most of the time. Research, terminology search, how to Google for terms. This was the only thing that they already knew. How to do a Google search. Editing, proofreading, project management, quality assurance, and the last lecture should inspire them with enthusiasm and make them optimistic. Based on recommendations from Alexandra and Tatiana, who have already got huge experience, we did this. We first started with providing them with various translations immediately, and then the feedback immediately was like, we can be sitting with one page for 3 days and we can't do anything. So we realized that we have to choose one area, one subject they will deal with during their internship. We start with reading translations already made, then they translate on their own and compare with our translators' translations. Then they discuss errors with editors, and it should be done at early stages because they have huge problems with their mother tongue. Because most people who come have good knowledge of foreign language, but they treat their mother tongue, you know, we don't care about those commas, style and so on. But as it turns out, it's very easy to recover. And in the last week, they are doing real translations and earn money. Finally, in terms of resources, we got 9 people from the company, 9 employees involved in that process. We have 13 employees all in all, so almost everybody is involved in the process. But everybody spends not a lot of time. They tell about their part, translators tell them about CAD tools, managers about management, quality assurance expert about quality assurance, and so on. So each employee spends just about 3% of their time on that process. So these are not critical costs for a company. This is not a critical cost for a company. And it's also preferable to have 1 or 2 hot seats, so that when people come, students come, they can use them. What are the results? For universities, it's about better awareness. It's important for all of us to describe why do we need to do all those things. And for universities, I would mention the following items: better awareness of tutors and students. First of all, students about the translation industry, how it works, what is there. For universities, it's about new level of internship sites. Because, for example, in Kharkiv, our students get their internships at various state-run companies where they just get a stamp that this person has passed the internship, and they do nothing there, actually, in those state-run companies. Then there are real practical sessions new knowledge for students, and teachers can improve their skills either directly or through some motivation from their students. That is to say, we expect that when there is a critical mass of students, they will start pushing their professors, their tutors, and her competitiveness of the university. I don't know exactly how it will be improved, but Alexandra and Tatiana say that yes, it will be improved. For students, they switch from zero level of knowledge about modern translation industry to the full awareness. We show them the full complete cycle. They can assess their level in real life situation. It turns out to be the most important thing for them. When they join us, it's not that important for them how it works. They want to know whether their English level is cool or not, for example. And then it turns out that this is not the most important question. There are lots of other factors to be taken into account. Ability to decide on where do they want to look for jobs, or what sort of activities should they be, what sort of work do they want to do in the future, because even the fifth year students, they don't know it as yet. And the ability to earn money. First two girls at the end of their internship achieved the level which is acceptable for us with their test translations, and fourth year students have to have another half a year of training, and they will achieve the same level. We have a certain threshold, and below the threshold in our tests, and below the threshold we don't use translators, and they start with the lowest level, like -5 points, and they achieve the level where we can use them. What are benefits for the company? Well, that's more complicated. First of all, it's about new stuff, either now or in the future. Cost savings. I'm not sure. I don't know why have I put it here, but in the future, yes. Better awareness of the company. It's about marketing and PR. Because there are those students, and we can show that if the company provides real internship for students, it means that this is a well-established company, quite a developed one. But there are also some hidden components, and for my company those are even more important than, say, remote prospects of getting new staff, new employees and so on. More important things are about some fresh blood, because when you have a team working together, over time it becomes not so energetic, and when students come, students have their eyes and say, oh, you know, it like stirs up everybody, and employees then assess themselves in a better way, because they feel cool, able to show young guys something and so on. That's why I engage almost all of my employees there, for them to become famous, so to say. And also students provide feedback. They are young people, they don't know, they know nothing as yet sometimes, so they provide unpredictable feedback. Sometimes it's very useful. You'll never consider your processes from that perspective. And exchange of the energy is very important, because there is this energy which comes from happy students when they complete their internship, which is important. Problems. Of course, there are always problems. I cannot say that we had any serious problems, but you have to structure this process in an even clearer way, because, for example, at our second internship we had a situation where students had to switch to the next stage, but some employee forgot to remind the next employee that students will be there, and for several days students kept coming, and since they're used to just come to universities to attend, we almost lag behind the schedule. Then access to the student selection process. If you want to provide internships, you don't want to get students in your company as interns who don't need that internship, because, you know, we spend our resources and we want to have some effect, some result, and of course you need time. Of course, it's up to everybody, but either your employee works and generates revenue, generates income, or he or she deals with students, and those activities do not generate income. And the prospects. Basically, all those prospects have already been mentioned today. Closer cooperation with universities, also after the graduation, something mentioned by Anu. Getting to the European level, again, based on Anu's and Dele's initiative, LA Exchange. By the way, with regard to LA Exchange, you're welcome to approach me, and we'll integrate it with Voxtron, with Elia, and maybe there will be some levels. And process optimization for internship process to increase direct benefits for the company. There is still something to think about, because, yeah, just a second, for that one, there is some belief or assumption that many people have, whereby it is possible to use students, and students are used as cheap employees. No. No, I mean, at least not here at this stage. Speaking about half a year or 3 months, maybe by the end of that period, maybe by the end of the 3rd month, there will be some result. But within 1 month internship, whatever those students do cannot be used for customers. It needs a lot of editor work to bring it in line with requirements for the project. So there is no real benefit from using students, working with students within this short period of time. It's only about long-term prospects, but here we spend more resources than we get as a result. So if somebody believes that students can be directly used, no, I cannot imagine that. My editors clearly say no, no way. Well, students are great, they say, but the result is... By the way, the first students were very much disappointed because of that. They thought that, okay, now their translations will become part of the history. That's basically it. Thank you. Thank you, Vitaly. I'd like to note that these activities in the last year happened due to people, and if you ask why, then they ask this question, why did we do that, when they prepare their presentation. But when they implement those things, this question, why, is not raised. They just understand that maybe you have to give something. You have to give something to your environment to receive something, in order to receive something. You have to give in order to receive. So I would like to repeat our wording of this key idea. Who is the target audience of this group? This group is for professionals who care. So this is maybe the role of a person in the development of this process. It's not implemented by some huge organizations, institutions, universities. No, it's done by individual people who just want to achieve more. And now, if you have any questions, we'll gladly answer those. Any statements, suggestions for cooperation? Yeah. If you want, you can do it. But, well, if anybody wants, we accept on board those people from universities who want to approach industry and people from the industry who want to approach universities. You can use Voxtron platform to do it on your own. Hello, thank you. I'm Olga Diakova, a freelance translator from Spanish and English languages. This project you implemented with your students, was it about one language pair, like English to Russian or English to Ukrainian? Which languages you handled? Interpreters cannot hear. It was mostly English, but the first two ladies were from English and German department, and they asked for German. Are you considering other languages for the future? We don't care about any specific language. Yes. Okay, thank you. Well, our working languages are English, German, Italian, French, Dutch, Spanish. Yeah. If people from Eastern languages departments come, we'll probably be unable to provide internships, but with European languages, it's not a problem. Any more questions, dear colleagues? Any suggestions? Criticism? So no questions, but still you're welcome to think about it and to make some contribution to cooperation between the industry and the universities. And now it will probably be a good thing to try and draw some conclusions. We'll try. First of all, as Tatiana said, it's all about people who care. It's difficult to answer some questions, especially the question why. But if we need it, we need it. And probably nobody will help us if we don't help ourselves. And it applies at various levels, including the country as a whole and the industry, and this is the only way. At least I see it this way. There are the same types of problems in Europe, Ukraine, and Russia. Basically nobody is lagging behind, nobody is running ahead, probably because we are all people, human beings, with some cultural specifics. But still, there is some positive experience of resolving those problems. Everybody has some positive experience, and there are options at both micro level, at the regional level, companies level, and macro level, using this school, for example. Another interesting conclusion or ideas I have heard is this: the university should not be dealing with training issues on its own. There should be another player, another actor, some sort of intermediary. And the concept of the higher school of translation and interpreting is, I think, along these lines. If anybody else has any other ideas, you're welcome. No. Well, I'd like to thank all speakers for very interesting, valuable material I have heard. I have been working as an interpreter for more than 20 years, and now I realize I also started written translations sometimes, and I understand that I'm very much lacking in terms of contemporary requirements. But a very important thing is, you know, for me, Ukraine is a bit different from some other countries, to the better. I see that the relations outside of Kiev, written translation is treated in a much more structured and better way. You know, our country should not be about the capital city only. Kiev is the capital for interpreting only. That's why I think I haven't seen any simultaneous interpreters I know here at this conference, because maybe they all know everything, everybody knows everything. But for me, you know, this conference is the very first conference in my career, and I spoke here. But I would like to say that I will promote and recommend your conference, because this is very high level. I will recommend it to my colleagues, because it will help us also in Kiev to work at a much better level. Thank you, thank you, thank you, dear colleagues. I'd like to also say that the organizers ask everybody to take a picture at that stand.